So hello, everyone. I couldn't be more pleased to drive you to the next chapter of today, of this afternoon. Today has been great, I have to admit. I love how the organizing team planted these small seeds all through the day, and I see how things are building on top of each other. So we now talked about how to create change for communities, and empathy, I think, is a word that now we heard in the previous panel like 10 times. So it's great now to be speaking only about empathy. So I want to introduce on stage Kim Dabbs, who is VP of Impact at Steelcase. But Kim is not only a VP of Impact at Steelcase, she's been working a long time on building communities and driving change and enabling professionals and individuals to find their footing in their own communities and drive their own change. Kim also wrote this amazing book that I had the pleasure to read. In Germany, would say I'm a bit of a Streber. I did my homework, but not only. This book actually is a great way that Kim found also to reach out to the single individuals and to give them clear guidelines to find their own way in their own life, to create their own change. So welcome on stage, Kim.
Thank you so much, everyone, for having me here today, and for such a beautiful introduction. It's so great to spend some time with you, especially this incredible creative community that, I was here this morning and into the afternoon and hearing things like care and community and collaboration, things that are all incredibly close to my heart. Like she had said, right now I lead Impact, so all of our commitments to people and planet for a global company called Steelcase. We do a lot of environments where people work together, where people learn, where people heal, and healthcare. But what I wanted to talk a bit about was what that means for creativity, what that means for community, and what that means for all of you as designers. So the book that she talked about was me going on a little bit of a 2-year journey to understand what belonging is, what it means, and how we're all connected. And many of you have stood on stages like this, like I am here in front of you today, and talked to your teams and talked to other designers and organizations. And so often our bios, how we show up in a space, our histories actually are introduced as we step on stage. And I think about entering new cultures and new communities and how I'm introduced into community. And so often when I enter a room, when I enter a restaurant, when I enter a cab, so often I'll get the question, where are you from? Because my German, ich über jeden Tag aber mein Deutsch ist schlecht. So they hear the English and they hear the accent. And they're like, where are you from? And I'll tell them, I'm from the US, Michigan, Midwest. Our state is shaped like a hand. They're like, no. Where are you really from? And these questions that we get about how interactions are designed, how we understand our own identity, how we're introduced, how we interact with the world, what's really being said here to me as an individual, how I receive this is, you are not one of us. I'm trying to place you because your words, your accent, your clothes, who you are, means you don't belong here. And as you navigate the world and how that impacts you over time, it makes you realize, how do I show up as I walk into a stage like this in front of all of you today? And so I wanted to go back a little farther. I'm not just leading Impact in our people and planet commitments. I'm not just doing the things in the world like researching belonging or creating cultures. I'm actually a Korean-born, American adoptee, so these are my sisters, that currently lives here in Munich, Germany. And I tell you that because all of these places that I've lived, all of these experiences that I've had, actually made me feel like I didn't belong. And so when we think about our role as designers, what does that look like? What do we do? How do we build belonging, not just in the products we design, but in the cultures we design and the teams that we're a part of? All of us are incredibly different. Our differences are not intended to separate or to alienate. We are different precisely in order to realize our need for one another. And so when we think about all of these things that make up belonging, exclusion, we've all felt that way, where you walk into a room and you feel like, oh, I don't belong here. Like, you know that feeling. That exclusion that happens, people are easily able to name that. We can all remember a time in our lives that that's happened. Now, inclusion, when people are talking about designing for inclusion, that's almost easier. It's saying, hey, we're going to have the open doors. We're going to be incredibly welcoming. You can be a part of our community. But belonging is actually when you have so many different people with so many different backgrounds and lived experiences coming together, and that interaction in the workplace, in the world, saying, I honor your difference, I honor your humanity in our interactions every single day. I can radically disagree with your opinion, approach, whatever that may be. And even though that still is true, I'm going to engage with you and the team with humanity. All of us in this room touch and shape the daily lives and experiences of nearly everyone in this world. Whether it be in the digital sphere, whether it be in the physical sphere, everyone has the ability to make choices, not only for ourselves and those of our clients, but actually the community that we live in every single day. And that responsibility is a power, and the only use of power in this world is to find others that do not have it and to share that power with them. And my ask of each of you as designers, as you go back with your teams, in your workplace, how are you designing for belonging? How are you doing that at an individual level? How can you ask those questions? Not where are you really from, but where do you call home? What are the little things that we can do every single day to open up that possibility? The workplace is one of the last places in the world where we gather physically and we can come together with people that hold different values, that hold different opinions, that hold different backgrounds than each and every one of us. And that discourse, that belonging that can happen between two people at a very human level matters now more than ever. I want to say thank you so much for having me here, and I'm so grateful for all of you for building belonging in your cultures and your communities, and that together we all belong. Thank you.
Now we looked at human-to-human interactions. We looked a bit at the system perspective of design. But we are now in 2025, right? What if we put also robots in the game? I couldn't be more pleased to now have another perspective in designing interactions, bringing Alona Kharchenko to stage. Alona is the co-founder, and the CTO of Devanthro, who actually sits in the same building. She will tell you more about it. Alona spent the last 9 years designing how to build empathy with robots. I don't want to spoil too much about her talk, but I couldn't be more pleased also because Alona has been nominated as the Forbes 30 Under 30, and you also won the Women Tech U last year. So a very young talent with a lot to say to us.
robots and empathy. I heard skeptical voices in the first rows. I also want to open with a sad picture and talk about care crisis. For some of you, it might seem like a very far distant future, but it is already today. 1 in 5 Europeans are over the age of 65. The care cost is going through the roof. Today in Germany, you would pay 3,000 euro per month for a place in a care home on average, out of your pocket, on top of insurance, right? And in the next 10 years, we will need 4 million caregivers that we don't have today. And this phrase stuck with me since December. Our best business would be if elderly stayed in bed all the time. This is the managing director of a care home in Germany. And he's saying that not because he's an evil person, like he doesn't want to keep them in bed. It's because we, as a society, build a system that is failing our elderly, their families, and caregivers. And I believe there must be a better way. And the question I'm asking myself, how can we enable elderly people to live longer, better, and age in dignity? And how can we superpower caregivers with technology? Meet Robody. This is a humanoid robotic avatar, and a person wearing VR glasses can teleport into the robot's body. So when you're moving, the robot is copying your motion. You can see through the robot's cameras. It's also showing the face of the operator and my emotions in real time. The Robody moves in with a person in need of care in the home and can help with simple physical tasks around the house. So, for example, giving the medicines. And it's always teleoperated. It's always teleoperated by a person. And because one caregiver can control multiple robots at the same time, we can bridge the distance. So they don't have to drive between people constantly, and we can also tap into caregiver pools outside of Germany, where there's no shortage of the caregivers. Last year, our company was the first one in the world to bring humanoid robots to real people, real homes, caring for them over multiple weeks. And today I brought to you 3 principles that guide us through this journey that I would like to share with you. Empathy must leave the lab. And here I'm talking about empathy as feeling with, not feeling like. We're going beyond this idea, putting myself into the shoes how the other people feel, but living through the experience in question with them in real life. This is how our robot looked when we are doing research, and it's a soft robot. So this is a safe robot that you can hug and so on. So at that point in time, we had an experience of tens of thousands of people in the real world, hugging, shaking hands, interacting. So when we started our commercialization journey in 2021, we knew directly it has to get out of the lab. So our robot has to go to the care, to the real world, and we have to see how the reaction is. So in February 2021, we go to the Lake Starnberg at the senior residence Alte Post. They were the first ones to say, yes, come with the robot, show it. And on that day, 5 elderly people could try the robot, and 7 caregivers teleoperated the robot. And in this version of the robot, you couldn't see who is teleoperated, except for one feature. So there was only voice that they could recognize. And it was magical. So the key learning from this test was that this trust between the caregiver and the elderly person is transmitted through the robot. Second principle is to design for togetherness. What I'm doing is building technology that creates space for human connection, not replaces it. Last example from the videos. Here I want to show the design for togetherness, and it's not about the game together. It's how she's correcting the stones that are falling not in the right places. It's again to repeat, it's not about serving and perfectly doing every motion. It's about them collaborating on something together and spending time. Last principle, but not least, is that empathy operates on multiple scales. And here we define empathy in a much broader sense, where it's an ability to understand, feel, and relate to others emotionally and cognitively across multiple scales during social interactions and context. And today I touched very, very top of the iceberg, where I spoke about individual scale, empathy between the robot, and a little bit about interpersonal scale. But in order to build the products that is successful in the market, we have to consider it across multiple scales, meaning organizational empathy. We are going and talking to the care providers. What is their daily pains? What are their needs? What are their constraints? As well as on the systemic scale, where we have to take into account implications that the robot is ethically, responsibly, and inclusively designed as part of the society. Because only then, considering all scales, we can be successful in building the product and the solution for the care crisis. That is all to my story of keeping the humans in the loop with care at heart. Thank you so much.
I would like to start with a question myself, taking advantage of being on stage with you. You both had to deal a lot with breaking barriers in your work life from different perspectives. Would you like to expand about that?
You know, I think about my career. People will ask me often, like, I have an unusual career path. I started in the nonprofit sector. I did public policy work around equity and education. And now I'm working in the corporate sector. And I would tell people, like, across sectors, I was never looking to break barriers. But when you do break a barrier, it's really a moment where you understand where it was and what power and control you have to be able to remove that barrier for others. And I think, like, our job in reciprocity of these moments as a female, as a person that has lived across multiple cultures, as a mother, as a partner, I mean, all of these things, not just in the workplace, but in the world, as we break barriers, when it happens and when we see that moment, how do we ensure that we can design for and remove those systemic issues that are there in the first place?
Thank you. Because especially think also of you, because I don't think it's so easy, right, to carry a robot. As you said it yourself, I mean, you got maybe some hesitance at the beginning from getting elderly facilities that would host you. How do you open the door? How you can remove the friction?
Well, the first door was opened with cold calling, so I just cold call all care providers in the area and try to arrange a meeting. Yes, but it's not that in the previous time that I'm still facing these barriers. So people hear robots, people hear care, people hear empathy, and these are very different worlds. And it's still a struggle, and the barriers go down very slowly. And this, I'm faced with bias that I have had myself, for example, where my idea about caregiving was skewed because I had certain stereotypes that you create in your head, and what helped there is being there, so going to the real world with the elderly people and interacting and seeing their reality. And the bias that I'm facing against myself is the ageism, so this idea that elderly people don't like technology, they don't want to understand it, and they don't have fun with it is completely false. And it takes a lot of data to find the way against it.
Yeah, I think you're raising a point that I was looking for questions. I think you're raising a point that is pretty much essential to the topic of breaking barriers and to design with empathy, which is removing your own biases. You touched upon it in your talk briefly. But it is a lot of work on yourself, but it's also the key, the key activity for a designer, right? For change makers. If I don't understand where are my biases, if I don't understand how to create a blank slate for me to start designing, I might fail from the beginning. You gave a little bit of hints on how to start doing it. Do you have extra tips on how to deal with biases?
Well, I mean, we are all fundamentally human. We're all going to hold biases. It's really diving deep and understanding where they exist, understanding that across multiple cultures, and then designing for that. Right? We can't remove bias from everything. This is the world we interact with. But the more that we do that inner work, and with our leaders, with our organizations, that inner work is truly systems work. And it's a piece that often we skip in organizations. We go straight to like, what's our team building exercise, or what are we going to do around these culture cues, instead of saying at an individual level, how do we do a deep dive, understand who we are, those experiences that we've had in our life, even before the workplace, to help us see more fully how we see the world as an individual, as a designer. And the more awareness that we have of that, the more space and time in our cultures that we allow for that, the more fuller and more beautiful our designs become.